3, 2, 1, we're recording. Actually, we've been recording for the last 5 minutes. Welcome to the David the Dog Trainer podcast. Episode number 2.
Yeah, we're live.
We're live. Hello, guys. This is the David the Dog Trainer podcast, episode number 2. Today, we are joined by Josh Dobe Productions, as with last time, as well as the Miracle Canine ladies.
Hello, ladies.
Dog trainers, Krista and Emily at Miracle Canine Training. Say hello.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
Krista, how awkward are you going to be throughout this whole thing?
500% awkward. Maximum awkwardness.
Your voice has immediately changed since we started.
I'm a lot nicer when I have to be. Yeah.
I have a full cup of coffee this time, which is exciting because I started half-mast last time.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so this is episode number 2. We're here with 4 people. I'm excited to try out all 4 of these microphones. We still have our janky table set up. Unfortunately, the table that we ordered, well, actually, we drove all the way out to Pittsburgh to try to get one from IKEA, the same one that's in the break room, and IKEA said that it was sold out and that we couldn't have it. So instead, we just got chairs, and it was a wasted trip to drive 2 hours to get nothing.
At least you got chairs.
The table will be here tomorrow, and then next week we will officially have a legitimate setup. I'll be able to cover these beautiful holes in the wall with some paintings or other fine arts that I might find. And we're going to start looking a little bit more like a podcast. We have 2 camera setups this time. Josh, how does that make you feel?
Oh, great. More work, but
more editing.
It's going to look way better. So
it's going to look pretty cool. So last time was kind of an introduction podcast. We kept it pretty simple. We talked about what we were doing. We talked about just general dog training questions, how we look at, kind of interpreting those questions, what we think that people mean by a lot of those questions, and why they don't frankly understand their dogs. That's going to segue really well today into what we're going to be doing. We are going to be going over a dog training book, the very first dog training book that I ever read in my life, and we'll talk about that in a minute here. First, Krista, Emily, talk about yourselves. How do you like dogs?
Emily, you take this one.
So I've been working with dogs for the past 10 years. I started out in the rescue world. Just saw a lot of dogs that had like major behavioral issues and that were just really hard to place in homes. So I wanted to know more about the behavior aspect. And interestingly enough, Cesar's Way was actually the first book I read too about dog behavior. And I started out as a trainer at another facility, and then I got a job with Miracle, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm training dogs.
Good stuff. Krista, how did you get? I actually don't know if I know how you exactly got into training dogs.
Well, you're about to learn.
I'm excited.
I used to be a dog walker and a dog pet sitter and do that in LA, and then I wanted to get into dog training, so I moved to upstate New York to learn more about dog training. Got this job here in Cleveland at Miracle Canine Training, and this is where I'm at. Just really always been interested in working with like dogs with severe behavioral issues and like aggressive dogs, and I feel like we do a really good job at helping those dogs. So,
did you were you working for like a rover kind of situation?
No, I it was my own company.
Oh,
just
that's
by
cool.
myself. Yeah.
What sparked you getting into that? Did you like have dogs and just knew they needed walking, or did you literally just need like a job?
I really wanted to do something that I loved, and I always liked working with animals, so then I just started dog walking and kind of gaining clients randomly and just built like a whole business out of it. So
Do you have like a family dog?
we had so many dogs.
Really?
We probably had like 10 dogs growing up.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
So you're like the anomaly of the people that come in and say that I've trained all of my dogs and it was just like 3 of them.
No, we did not train our dogs. We didn't even put collars on our dogs. So.
Nice. And you probably had very little behavioral issues with them?
We had so many behavioral issues with
disregard,
our dogs.
so.
Yeah, it was terrible.
This is where Chris is at now. This is why she trains them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Emily, what got you into the rescue world?
So I attempted college, and that really wasn't my thing. So I kind of came back from school, and I just knew that I'd always liked animals. And so I started volunteering at the Humane Society when I came back, and I quickly applied for a job there. And the dogs that always just had like bad behaviors or just were like more shut down, like saw a lot of euthanasias, and it was just kind of hard to watch. And then I moved on to another rescue, and really there was one dog in specific that just kind of like sparked an interest. Like, he had some major issues, and I just really wanted to know how to help dogs like that. And so I just started reaching out to other training facilities and got a job there.
I had the least exciting version of all of those. I had no dogs growing up. I knew nothing about dogs. I literally think the reason why I got a dog in the first place is because I was dating a girl that really liked dogs. And I was like, maybe I should get a dog. I don't know. Sounds like a good idea. So I wound up with one. And then...
And that changed the avenue of your life.
My band situation just like crumbled apart under me, which was like the only thing I cared about. And then it was like, okay, well, I have nothing to do now, so I might as well just train this dog. So I mean, it really was as simple as that. And look at us now. It's great. So frankly, right when I got my first dog, this was one of the first things that I bought. I think I remember going to the pet store, and I knew I was getting a dog the next day. I'd already filled out the paperwork and stuff for it. And I was buying, the crates, the food, the treats, the toys, all that kind of stuff. And this book was sitting there. And everybody at the time had kind of heard of The Dog Whisperer. It was a popular show on, what was it, Animal Planet, Discovery Channel or something. And it was just this guy that seemingly knew how to do anything with dogs. It was really exciting. So I remember picking it up, and I was not a big reader at the time. And I remember I cruised through this book in like probably 4 days. Like, it's a pretty easy read. And it's very, very interesting. And Cesar, I would say, is probably one of the most loved or hated people in the dog training world. I mean, frankly, there are a lot of people that fucking hate this guy's guts. Not really for any sort of justifiable reasons. I think that most of it is either coming from like the positive only standpoint of people that just think that he's abusive and cruel and this and that, or you have the polar opposite of the people that are like hardcore dog training. We just make dogs compliant and this and that, and they have to sit when we say sit and blah, 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 blah. And those people are just like, he's dog whispering. I hear that one a lot. You don't want a dog whisperer. You need to train he's not even teaching them to sit. And I feel like maybe it was because I was like ignorant at the time and knew nothing about dog training or knew nothing about dogs, or I just found them at a very good time where I was just open to pretty much whatever. But I feel like I saw through most of that bullshit right off the rip. And I was able to understand that he's not interested in training the dogs. That is not his specialty. It's not that he doesn't believe it. He has an entire book that I'm sure we'll cover at some point where he is actually really cool. And it's I think it's called like How to Train Your Dog or something like that. And basically what he did is he reached out to nationally recognized dog trainers all over the country and had each of them write passages on how they would teach or eliminate certain behaviors or do this or do that. And again, if you read it, there's not, it's not like the most tactical, like sit down, you're going to train your entire dog by reading this, but you're going to get a good idea for how a lot of different people train dogs. He even reached out to, I forgot the guy's name, but is a very, very well-known positive-only dog trainer, and had him write a passage for it too, even though.
Is it him?
It was not Zach George. I think Zach George wasn't even born when Cesar wrote that book.
Oh. Yeah, he's actually way older than he looks, though.
I know. He looks like a 4-year-old, though. Zach George is one of the most popular, like, YouTube sensation positive-only dog trainers on the internet that all he does is, like, get really excited, he looks like this! And he talks about training dogs and talks about how you have to do everything with cookies. So I don't know. Zach George isn't great. It was not Zach George. It was like one of the like Karen Pryor kind of people who like actually had a very scientific background of like how they're training them, the reasons why they're doing things and stuff like that. And, again, like I really don't think that Karen Pryor or any of these other people are very great either, but Karen Pryor's book, Don't Shoot the Dog, I mean, it's a positive-only book, but it has a lot of very tactical information in it, and it's, I think, very important to understand that side of the argument as well when you're looking at training dogs, right? Because you are going to be presented with people that know a lot about that side of training, and there is a lot of scientific research behind a lot of it. The problem is just that, the controlled environments is really the problem with it. It's not that the science is incorrect or anything. It's just that the science is not being done in the real world, right? But anyways, So I was able to see past a lot of that stuff, and I was able to understand that, okay, Cesar is not looking to train your dog. He's not looking to teach it to lay on its dog bed as your guests come in the door and this and that. He's teaching you the most important part of dog training, which is how do you live with this dog? How do you coexist with this dog? And how do you make sure you're not creating all of these different behavioral problems with the dog? Because 90% of it is the owner. We all know this. That's what we do, right? Our board and train programs, it's not that, teaching them to sit down or lay on their bed is the most important part. It's eliminating these behavioral issues through eliminating a lot of the things the owners are doing that are creating those things. And then the training is the other 50% of the equation, right? So when I read this book, I feel like I just kind of got it. I understood that dogs are dogs, humans are humans, and there's a particular balance that needs to be found in the way that you're living with your dog, where you're not creating these problems through overly humanizing them, through loving them too much, through doing any of those types of things. And it helped me a lot when I first got my dog. So I'm a big fan of Cesar. We're going to be reading through some passages here and just kind of talking about them a little bit. And, from the standpoint of dog trainers who not only focus on the human side of things, but also focus heavily on the training side of things, a little counterintuitive to what he talks about in here. I think we're going to have some interesting conversations about it. So, Josh, you ever watch The Dog Whisperer growing up?
Maybe like 2 or 3 episodes. But it was always very interesting to see because there was the Cesar Millan wave,
Yeah.
It was like, this is prime time, So I can't say that I was a huge fan,
Sure.
But it was a staple household name for me, for sure.
A lot of people knew who he was. And I think that's why he got the rap that he got, whether positive or negative, is because a lot of people knew who he was.
Yeah, exactly. Someone like me that is not in the dog training world per se as a trainer.
Yep.
It was very interesting to get people into that world, I think.
Yeah.
I think he definitely opened the door for lots of people like you, and made it a staple thing to get your dog trained.
Yeah, I would agree. Emily, I know you're a huge Cesar fan. How did you get turned on to him?
Oh my gosh, I'm like sitting over here just so excited. I can't lie. Like when I found out that's what we were talking about, I was like, yes. So I actually saw Cesar live once.
Was it in Akron?
Yeah, what? I think it was like Canton actually, but
Yeah. I didn't go to it, but I remember exactly when he came to town and wanting to go to it.
Doing like a seminar? Or?
Yeah, like really cool experience. He took like a rescue dog and just like so like from a trainer standpoint, like I can kind of see what he's doing. Like he does a lot of like leash help, a lot of body language, but like to like an untrained eye, like what he does is essentially like magic. And before I knew what I knew, like, and still like to this day, like I watch a lot of Cesar when I'm getting ready in the morning, like his YouTube channel. And it's the reason I love Cesar so much is because he really just puts it on the owner. And I think that like as trainers, we get so caught up in like, one, just telling people like what their dog's about. And like, I feel like he's kind of helped me shape my training style and like having my clients look inwardly, like just having them like assess like that their dogs are essentially mirrors. So I've read pretty much all of his books. Like I just like that he's really like energy based, and like his whole gig is like your dogs are picking up what you're putting down, right? Mm-hmm. So
for sure. I have always loved that. Like, I'll see on Facebook people all the time, like dog trainers particularly, that when they have clients that come in that are like, yeah, like I really like Cesar. I watch a lot of Cesar Millan. There are so many trainers out there that see that as such a negative, right? They're like, oh God, I got to like undo all these things that they're thinking, or it's all jargon or whatever it is. But I've never understood that. I think that the people that watch it are able to identify the issues that they're having with their dog much more clearly. Christa, I know you probably have, outside of Josh, the least background in Cesar himself. I know you probably didn't read a ton of his stuff.
You gave me like 5 hours to prep.
What is your exposure to him? How do you know who he is? Do you have any sort of background in like knowing about him?
I think we all kind of knew who he was growing up, and watched it here and there, but I haven't been like a hardcore Cesar fan in that I've really studied him or read his books or anything.
Sure.
But I've seen like things here and there, some of his shows, some of his YouTube stuff, but not nearly as much obsessed as Emily is. So
Yeah, I see how this is. It's like we're the newbie side over here. We did not plan this accordingly on our seating.
Oh, man.
We're about to get schooled, I think.
Well, so here's the thing. Like I said, I have bookmarked a bunch of sections in this. Some of these sections are a little long. Some of them are a little short. We're just going to start burning through this book a little bit, reading it, talking about it at any point. If anybody has any questions or interesting things to add on to any of this stuff, interrupt me and pause me. So we're going to start jumping right into this. This is the #1 New York Times bestseller, Cesar's Way. Also, I think it's pretty cool that a dog trainer has a #1 New York Times bestseller book. That's pretty cool. I mean,
yeah.
You look at dog training as like I don't know, like I feel like you don't think of it as like a big industry or a big like corporation or anything like that, right? Mm-hmm. And then you start looking at like when something like this hits the market, like he hit at the perfect time, right? There was nobody else out there that was preaching a lot of things that he was preaching. There was no big name dog trainers. I mean, you had probably like your celebrity dog trainers and stuff like that. But I feel like dog training seemed like this kind of unattainable thing that you just do yourself when you get your dog, right? You watch a couple YouTube videos and you figure it out. And then when books like this started coming out, as people started seeing more and more behavioral issues with their dogs, which we'll talk about why we're seeing that in here, obviously. I think that stuff like this got more important, and he was just the first one to hit it, and it became such a big thing. So, again, Cesar's Way, the natural everyday guide to understanding and correcting common dog problems. So, 1 million copies sold. I wonder when this book got published.
It's inside, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
David hasn't read a book before.
I've never read a book. When did this book come out? I'm curious. 2006. 1 million copies sold in 2006. That's pretty good.
Wow.
All right. Got to clear my throat, get my reading. This is like in school when they used to tell you got to read a passage and move on to the next person, then move on to the next person. I will say that I read pretty fast typically. So when I start reading out loud, I start stumbling over myself a little bit. So this could be very awkward. We'll see. All right, so beginning of the book, obviously we're going to skip past a lot of this. Just talks a lot about how Cesar came to the United States, how he started getting involved in the Los Angeles scene, stuff like that. Like I said, I have kind of earmarked here a handful of different interesting passages we're going to start burning through. So the first one talks about it's called behavioral issues. And I believe this talks a little bit about how he started noticing a lot of behavioral issues and why. So we're going to start reading here. Encountering dogs with fancy leashes and collars and expensive hairdos astonished me when I first came to America. But in a way, the Hollywood type I had been raised with through movies and TV had prepared me for some of that. It was like going to the circus for the first time after being told about it all your life. There was one thing about my new situation, however, that shocked me to the core. It was the bizarre behavioral problems that many of these dogs exhibited. Even after growing up around canines all my life, dogs with what I now call issues were something completely foreign to me. During my time at the groomers, I saw the most beautiful dogs I had ever imagined, stunning examples of their breeds, with clear eyes, gleaming coats, and healthy, well-fed bodies. Yet I could tell just by looking at them that their minds weren't healthy. Growing up with animals, you could automatically sense when their energy levels are normal. That healthy, balanced state of mind is recognizable in any creature. It's the same for a horse, a chicken, a camel, even for a child. I don't know if camels think the same. I'm not sure. Yet I could see right away that these American dogs were exhibiting what seemed to me to be very strange, very unnatural energy. Even at the vets in Mazatlan, I'm not sure where that is, I had never encountered dogs that were so neurotic. That's a key word here, guys. Neuroticism in dogs is everything that we see. So excitable, so fearful, and tense. And the owner's complaints. I didn't need to know very much English to understand that these dogs were very aggressive, obsessive, and driving their owners crazy. The way some of these owners acted, it seemed as if their dogs were actually running their lives. What was going on here? I mean, that first paragraph just sums up literally every owner that comes into our facility. I mean,
yeah,
like neurotic, aggressive, obsessed, driving their owners crazy. Neurotic is the key word, though. I think that 90% of the issues we're seeing with our dogs right now are coming from a pure neurotic place. Mm-hmm. It's literally everything. Back to the book. Back on my grandfather's farm in Mexico, there was no question of a dog's misbehaving and getting away with it, or trying to show its dominance over a person. And it wasn't because of abuse or physical punishment. It was because the humans knew they were humans and the dogs knew they were dogs. Who was in charge and who wasn't was crystal clear. That simple equation has carried the dog-human relationship forward during the thousands, possibly tens of thousands of years since the very first dog ancestor wandered into our human ancestors' camp and realized it could get a quicker meal there than hunting all day. Boundaries between dogs and humans were simple and obvious. The dogs I knew in Mexico were naturally balanced. They didn't have troublesome personality quirks, such as overt aggression or fixations. They were often very scrawny and mangy and sometimes not very pretty to look at, but they seemed to live their lives in harmony that God and Mother Nature had intended for them. They interacted naturally with both their kind and with humans. So what was going on with these gorgeous poster dogs in America? Christa, what was going on with them?
Stop. Move on to Emily.
Emily,
has
what was
some
going on with
thoughts.
them?
They're just a product of being like overloved, just observed. People are just always so concerned about like what their dog's doing, why they're doing it. I would say like 90% of the drop-offs we have, like it's 10 minutes of people telling me exactly why their dog does X, Y, or Z.
Oh yeah,
And
people definitely coddle their dogs way more now than ever.
And I just think it's just a lack of knowing, like, and I think even with COVID right now too, it's like extreme because all you have to do is stare at your dog and just kind of wonder why. But
I think people have really good intentions behind it, like giving so much to their dogs, but it's just like the affection and the coddling is not the right thing. The fancy new collars aren't the right things.
Right.
Yeah.
So would you say treating them as humans?
100%. I mean, like you said here, dogs were dogs and humans were humans, frankly. And, we've seen that shift over the last 20 years, where that's evolved, where people are having less children and they're having more dogs, frankly, right?
I see dogs in baby strollers now.
How many comments do we used to get on the Miracle page or wherever, and every single one of them was like, fur baby, my baby.
Yeah.
It's that like baby, like that dog, that word is used more in the dog training world than it is used in the human world.
Dog mom.
Dog mom, fur mom, like
Yeah.
it's just the culture right now, right? And it goes back to, again, the industry and how much money is being made off of this stuff by pushing that mentality, right?
Right.
So back to the book. The fact that so many American dogs had issues hit me even harder once I moved to Los Angeles and started working as a kennel boy at a dog training establishment there. I wanted to learn how to be a dog trainer, and I had heard that this was the best place around. I knew that rich people paid a great deal of money to leave their dogs at this highly respected facility. First off, can we talk about how in Los Angeles, the typical board and train, like exactly what we do with dogs, costs like $12,000?
No, it doesn't.
Certain places.
Really?
Yeah.
You should know, California girl.
I didn't.
I mean, I think when you look at, have you ever? So we're talking the ones that actually deal with the celebrities.
Oh yeah.
Right. So there's this place in particular called Cali Canine. Right.
Oh yeah.
Cali Canine literally charges like $9,000 for a board and train, and if you want all of the follow-up lessons and stuff that are included with it, I think it's over $10,000.
Wow.
Which is insanity.
That's more than New York City's.
Yeah, New York City has expensive places, but I think most
LA
of New York
has the
City's
celebrities.
Los Angeles has the celebrities. New York has some too, but
Yeah.
I don't think New York is as conducive to training dogs. You can't find the spaces that you could find out in Los Angeles. Like Cali Canine has an actual warehouse that they could train out of, where they could, he does a lot of protection work and this and that.
And it's nicer weather, so you're out with your dog way more.
Yeah,
than
New York, you're
City.
still kind of confined to a small place or doing in-home lessons. And I think that technically the rate in New York is probably just as high, but a lot of the people that are doing it on an hourly basis, right? Like Blake, when he goes out and does one-on-one sessions himself, I think he charges like $400 an hour, which is way more than what we charge. So a little bit crazy there. Where were we at? Paid a great deal of money to leave their dogs at this highly respected facility. They would drop off their dogs for 2 weeks so the animals could learn to follow commands such as sit, stay, come, and heel. When I began work at this facility, I was stunned at the condition of some of the dogs arrived in. Physically, of course, they were all gorgeous. They were all fed, probably fat, beautifully groomed, and their coats gleamed with their good health. But emotionally, many of them were complete wrecks. Some were fearful and cowering, some were edgy or out of control aggressive. Ironically, the owners usually brought the dogs in to be trained in the hopes of getting rid of those neurotic behaviors. They believed that once the dog was taught to respond to commands, its fear, anxiety, or other problem behaviors would miraculously go away. This is a common but dangerous misconception. It's absolutely true that if a dog has a mild, happy-go-lucky nature to begin with, traditional dog training can help settle her down and make life easier for everybody. But for a dog that is nervous, tense, excited, fearful, aggressive, dominant, panicky, or otherwise unbalanced, traditional training can sometimes do more harm than good. That fact became clear to me from my very first day at the training facility. So it goes back to the conversation. Again, here he's talking a lot about training is wrong for behavioral issues. Now, let's talk about that for a minute here. Training is not the problem. It's the 50-50 balance, and the problem is that so many people get hung up on the training, right? I mean, a dog responding to so using his example here, right? A happy-go-lucky nature dog, traditional dog training can help, right? So we need to first get the dog to a place where they get as close to the happy-go-lucky, good nature dog so that the training is beneficial. So first thing that we have to do in all of these equations is we need to eliminate a lot of these behavioral problems. We need to teach how to live with the dog, and it starts with us, right? If a dog comes in for a board and train, now we're not doing these 2-week board and trains that a lot of people out there are doing because, frankly, the shorter time constraint you have, the more forced you are to get things done, which he actually talks about in this next section here we're gonna discuss. But we need the time to be able to, one, build the proper relationship, right? That's the thing about the board and train is most owners will develop relationships with their dogs in the improper order, right? They start with all the love and the affection and the sweet stuff and the toys and the collars and the grooming and the well-fed and all that kind of stuff. And then from there, they try to move into rules and structures as they see behavioral problems, right? That's incorrect. You can't do that. What's the first thing that we do with the dogs? We develop a relationship on rules. We develop a relationship on boundaries. We develop a relationship through the training, right? So we take that traditional training. We don't look at it necessarily as a means of stopping the neuroticism, but we use that to be able to build a positive relationship and a positive association with the dog while getting them into a more compliant state of mind, right? So we get them out of that state of mind of running the show. I think he said here somewhere that the dogs were running the owner's lives. We get them out of that state of mind, and then once we see the dog become a little bit more balanced, then we implement that training to be able to manage the dog. And I talk about this all the time. The goal with dog training is not to have it's not to have a dog that we're micromanaging all the time and down, sit, this, that, boom, boom, right? The goal is to have a dog we have to micromanage as little as possible, and then we use the training in the situations where there's no other option, right? In a perfect world, yes, the dog would just be free to do what they want as long as they understand the boundaries, right? Mm-hmm. As long as they don't jump on my guests, I don't care where my dogs lay, right? As long as they don't rush through the doorways, I don't care if they're sitting or downing or standing or any of those types of things. But inevitably, there's situations where you can't just have the dog free for nuisance behaviors. What if you have somebody coming over that is allergic to dogs? Or what if it's Thanksgiving and everybody's walking around with plates of food and somebody might accidentally trip over a dog even though the dog is doing absolutely nothing wrong? You know, what if you're walking through Home Depot and your dog can't be off of the leash, wandering around, going up to every guest that's there? You have to have some sort of communication in order to successfully put your dog in more situations, because that's what we do now. We don't just leave our dogs home. We take them everywhere with us. So we need training because of that. But you have to address that first side of the equation as well. I think that's very, very important. All right, back to the book. My job at this facility was to lock the dogs in separate kennels until their daily lessons were to begin, then take them to their trainers. The isolation these troubled dogs experienced in the kennels between sessions often heightened the anxiety they had brought with them. Unfortunately, since the establishment wouldn't get paid unless the dog followed commands by the time the owner arrived to pick it up, instilling fear between commands and between commander and commandee was often the method of last resort. Some dogs would leave in worse psychological shape than they were when they arrived. I witnessed dogs respond obediently to a trainer's commands while crouched down, ears back, cowering, tail between the legs, body language that broadcast loud and clear, "I'm only obeying you because I'm terrified." I believe that the trainers at this facility were caring professionals, and there was nothing cruel or inhumane going on there, but there was, in my personal observation, a deep-seated misunderstanding of the basic dog needs, of what the canine mind truly needs to become balanced. That's because traditional dog training is based on human psychology. It doesn't begin to address a dog's nature. I stayed at this establishment because I felt I needed to learn the business of dog training. It was, after all, what I'd come all this way to do. But this wasn't the dream I had imagined. From the moment I arrived there, I sensed that this kind of training may have been helpful for the humans, but it was sometimes detrimental for the dogs. Thinking back, it was then that my original dream started to take on a new shape. Once again, much of that change happened by accident. Although I like to believe that this wasn't accidental at all, it was destiny.
Destiny.
It's interesting though, right? So most board and trains, it really is dog comes out for session, dog goes back in crate. Dog comes out for session, dog goes back in crate. And here's the thing. Inevitably, there's going to be some of that no matter how you're training the dog, right? But you have to look at past just the training, what other things does this dog need to not go completely bonkers all day long? That's why we try to do so much socialization. Daycare is I would say it's a very small, like when you look at the actual business side of things, right? It does not generate that much income per the staffing that it takes in order to run it. If anything, on daycare days, we are less productive with other things because we need to accommodate that stuff more so, right? We need more supervision and stuff for that. But without that, you figure, how much training can you actually do with a dog in a day? Very, very little, right? And what do dogs actually need? They need to learn to interact and to socialize, right? That socialization could be with people, trainers, the staff, all that kind of stuff, right? That socialization can be with other dogs, or that socialization can be with the environment. So given the fact that a lot of the equation is training, the other side of the equation would be that socialization. So we try to spend time exposing the dog to new environments, exposing the dog to new people, exposing the dog to new dogs, and making sure that they're getting that outlet where they're not under any sort of constraints of you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. You could open up, you could unwind, you could relax. And frankly, after socials, that's where we see the dogs the most calm, right? Thoughts? Anybody?
That's something that I really like about our facility. I wouldn't really consider ourselves like traditional dog trainers in the sense that we're just like very cut and dry. But we really do focus on actually socializing the dog and getting them to learn how to socialize with other dogs, which is something that I don't really see a lot of other trainers do. Mm-hmm. Which I really like that side of it. Is it's not just obedience. We do the flip side of dogs learning how to interact with other dogs and really learning to open up versus kind of other dog trainers that kind of shut those dogs down around other dogs, mm-hmm. Whereas we see like reactive dogs, and I think traditional trainers see a reactive dog and think that dog can't be around other dogs, versus we see a reactive dog and we think, how can I get this dog to coexist with other dogs?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like building on that too, even in our training sessions initially, I really like that, like our program is like for the first week, we're just focusing on like getting them comfortable with the leash, just getting them comfortable being around us, like just figuring out like the easiest way to get them just like de-stressed and just almost like getting them to just figure it out like on their own, like make it like it's their idea. And just having them around us all the time instead of having to just like do all these sits and do all these bed stays right off the bat, I think just really like brings a really full circle balanced dog at the end.
And having the time to like ease into training that first week and building some food drive and stuff.
Yeah.
Versus like a 2-week program, you don't really have that time.
Yeah, and looking at this from like a human example here, right? Like my personal dogs. So, obviously I just moved into this house like a month ago. And for the probably month to 2 months before that, my entire living situation was essentially in limbo, right? Like we were living out of 2 households. My dogs were either at home all the time in kennels because we were bouncing back and forth between houses, or they were at the shop in kennels because they're not obviously paying clients, so they're not getting all of that exposure and stuff. And it's interesting because in that period of time, of those couple of months before moving, Vinny, my Malinois, was at his like peak state of neurotic, right? Like I remember he would just like wake up in the morning at like 6 a.m. and just start like pacing around the bedroom, and he would just be up and ready to go and just really hyped up when I would get home. And it would be like I would get home and take him out, and it's like 20 minutes later, it's like we gotta go to bed, and he was just constantly in this state of being unfulfilled. And it was interesting because Kate said just the other day, she was like, Vinny has been so unbelievable since we moved into this house, as far as like he'll sleep just like Vera and Deli. He'll sleep all morning, like if we let him. Like he goes and parks himself on his little dog bed next to the bed, snoozing away. He doesn't get around and pace at all or anything.
Of that.
I'll send you some. It's very good. It's very good. But a part of that has to do with, because we're here, we're not going anywhere else. We're not bouncing between different places. He has so much more time to be out and to be able to just exist and be a dog and interact with his new surroundings and interact with the other dogs and interact with the people we've had come in and out all the time and stuff. And he's been so like just noticeably better. And those are the things that you could do all the training you want. And I tell my clients that, you know, a dog being pent up is not an excuse for poor behavior, obviously, right? And it's not like he was doing anything particularly bad that I could take training and be like, hey, stop doing that. But his overall state of mind, the neuroticness of him, it just suppressed itself so much organically because of that. It's really cool to see.
Which I like going back into like training and that kind of mindset, really like that, or really want people to do training with their dogs so they can do more with their dogs. So they're not in a constant state of being bored or neurotic, or you're gone for 8 hours, you come home, take me on a 30-minute walk, and then it's bedtime. You know, like that typical routine, like training lets you get to do more with your dog.
Yeah, it's like a huge cycle, right? Like you could talk about, okay, cool, like the dog needs to be exercised and given proper discipline, and obviously given exercise, discipline, affection is Cesar's 3 things that he talks about, right? You need that thing, but you need communication and training in order to do that, right? And you need communication and training in order to give the dog the exercise, right? And it just kind of keeps spinning around in circles like that. So and that's the one thing that I think Cesar misses a little bit in when he communicates to people, is he talks a lot about that living with the dog side of things, but we need to be able to empower the owners in how to do it. Now, should they be able to do it on their own without all of that training? Sure, right? In a perfect world, that would be great.
Not everybody's a dog whisperer.
But not everybody's whispering.
You know what's interesting though? I was just recently looking at his YouTube, and he's just started doing, like, I think he calls it like a bed stay. Like, yeah. So I think he is.
I haven't seen much recent stuff of him, I will say.
Yeah, like it's interesting that he's starting to just add like a little bit more of like the training aspect, because I do think that just takes everything to the next level. If you give your dog like a clear stationary command, like just giving them something to do, like, I mean, isn't that leadership in itself?
Kind of teaching your dog how to be calm.
Yeah.
I would
in
agree.
a way. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think that creates necessarily the calmness, but it creates the stability so that you can do other things and have that forced separation, which then creates the calm mindset.
Yeah.
Because the calm mindset, we were talking about this about Doof the other day, the calm mindset doesn't come from making a dog hold an hour-long bed stay, but making the dog hold an hour-long bed stay forces you to do the things that will create the calm mindset, right? If the dog is in a bed stay, you're not going to be coddling them. They're not going to be all in your lap the whole time. They're not going to be following you all around the house, and you're going to enforce that. Right? Now, could you enforce that without putting the dog in a bed stay? Probably, right? But it makes it that much easier.
I think also with some dogs, like you've said this before, where the dog may not want to hold the bed stay, but repeating that process and teaching them how to be calm, and in the hopes that the dog will choose to do that versus something else.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah, you're patterning it,
Yeah,
right?
patterning it.
You know, like I would say the reason why Vinny goes directly to his dog bed when we go into the bedroom at night is probably because I've put him into it a lot of times when he was doing that pacing. So he just defaults to, we go in here, I go here. We go in here, I go here. So it starts to kind of create and shape those patterns that we ultimately want. One day, you know, it's going to be interesting. I feel like, how many times are you working with a client and you tell them, like, you know, my dog held is that a milkshake you're drinking?
It's foam.
It literally looks like a milkshake.
It's the cold foam.
But you know, how many times do you tell them, like I made my dog hold an hour or an hour and a half long bed stay or something, and they just look at you like, no way.
Yeah.
Like they don't even believe that it's possible.
I get clients
right?
who are like excited about like 5-10 minutes.
Yeah. And I was saying when we went to Connecticut the last time for Thanksgiving, like we took Deli and Vera, they probably held a 3-hour long bed stay during Thanksgiving dinner. And when I tell people that, they're like, they literally don't believe it.
Yeah.
So one day we're going to put a bed up here, and I'm going to put a dog in a bed stay, and they're going to hold it for the entire podcast just so people can see it's actually possible.
I choose Vera though.
We'll pick Vinny just because it's going to be the one people will be most impressed by, I feel like.
Just because you said that. We're going to do Vinny.
All right. Back to the book. All right. Next part here. Caesar's Way is born. I need to come up with a cool name for the way we train. Like Caesar's Way. The dog trainer's way. I don't know.
This isn't the time.
I'm going to put some thought to that. All right. While at this training facility, I once again gained a reputation for being the guy who could handle the most aggressive and most powerful breeds of dogs, such as pit bulls, German shepherds, and Rottweilers. Pit bulls aren't really the most powerful breed. Whatever. I happen to be crazy about those breeds. Their brute strength inspires me. Another kennel boy there was also great with the powerful breeds, but he didn't want to work with the nervous or anxious ones. I would end up with them, usually the really troubled cases. Instead of yelling at an aggressive or insecure dog like some of the other kennel boys did, call out, I'd approach her silently. No talk, no touch, no eye contact. In fact, when I saw such a dog, I'd open the gate, then turn my back as if I were about to walk off in the other direction. Eventually, since dogs are naturally curious, the dog would come to me. Only after she had approached me would I put the leash on her. At that point, it was very easy because I had already established my calm, assertive dominance with her. Now I underlined calm, assertive dominance there. That's why we literally ignore the dogs when they come in. You know what I mean? Like, we literally pretend they are not there. And I've had people ask me before. Maynard's owner asked me when I did an assessment with him the first time I ever met him. We're like 30 minutes into the assessment, and he asked me, he's like, so I noticed you haven't pet my dog yet.
That's all that he wants.
To be fair, Maynard's pretty great.
Yeah.
Maynard's a fantastic dog. Maynard's owners are fantastic owners. But it was just funny that he asked, you haven't pet my dog yet. And he was a little bit you could tell kind of what the fuck's wrong?
Yeah.
What's wrong with my dog? Kind of, And again, now I don't, calm, assertive dominance. I don't know what you want to call it by doing that, but we are establishing that energy of I'm not freakishly obsessed with you right now. I have other things to worry about, right? It is not it's not the Maynard show right now. It's not this show. And what it does, it immediately puts the dog into a different state of mind because they're used to the polar opposite. They're used to owners coming in, and they're used to meeting new people, and those people just ogling over them, right? Which puts them into a neurotic state of mind. All right. Establish calm, assertive dominance with her. The way another dog would do with her in nature. Another example, dog doing with her in nature. The most dominant dogs that you will see, I always say, are the ones that do the least, right? A dog that is extremely confident and dominant and stuff, they're not going up to all the other dogs like, hey, let's play. Hey, let's do this. Hey, let's do that. If they are challenged, they will rise to that occasion. But other than that, they walk around like they're fucking queen shit.
King shit. And I know who I'm talking about, Kingston.
Kingston is actually a very good example of that. I was also thinking Vera.
Yeah, Vera.
But Kingston is a very good example of that, of a dog that really is not... I really genuinely don't think Kingston is a super aggressive dog.
No.
I think he's just so unbelievably dominant in personality that if challenged, will rise to the occasion.
Oh, yeah.
Right? He will take it to the extreme if challenged, but I've never in my life seen him actually just go out and be like, I'm trying to assert myself to people.
Which is almost more scary.
Oh,
He
for
won't
sure.
back down.
For sure. Unconsciously, I was beginning to apply the dog psychology I had learned from my years observing dogs on my grandfather's farm. I was interacting with the dogs the way they interacted with one another. This was the birth of the rehabilitation methods I still use today. Where was the birth of my rehabilitation methods? Although I couldn't have explained in words what I was doing at the time, neither in English nor in Spanish. What about in French? Everything I did just came instinctually to me. Now, that's another place where people get lost. I think things like this is what kind of enables the mindset of, I just instinctually know how to train. I just get them.
Which I just disagree when people are like, oh, I was born to be a dog trainer, or you were born to like.
We won't name names.
Yeah. I have no problem naming names. I'm just joking. But I think a lot of it is like taught in practice, just like anything else, like exposure to it, and like not you were born with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could be exposed to the correct information early on, which could be reading a book in my case, or it could be growing up on a farm where people interacted that way with other dogs, so you could see the contrast, right? You have to have at some point have seen the contrast between what this creates and what this creates. So, back to the book. Another crucial accident that occurred at this training facility was that I began to see the power of the pack to rehabilitate an unbalanced dog. One day, I went out into the yard holding 2 Rottweilers, a Shepherd, and a Pit Bull all at once. I was the only one there who had ever attempted anything like this. I think he kind of got a little bit of an ego brag with the, I just work with the power breeds. There's a lot of trainers out there that market that stuff. You know, you see all the big Mastiffs and Rottweilers and the Rottweilers.
The little pocket pitties.
Yeah, right? Little stocky things and stuff. And like, it's like the people with Malinois nowadays, right? If you have a Malinois and post a bunch of videos of your Malinois doing cool stuff, you are a badass dog trainer, right? Or doing bite work.
Aren't those like the easiest dogs to train?
I mean,
in a way,
I think that's
calm.
subjective. I think they can learn very fast.
Yeah.
But I think that when you look at what is the goal of the training that we do, it's to create a calm, balanced dog. I would completely disagree with that.
They're not the easiest dogs to own.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's 100%.
Like train because they're super pumped.
Yeah, they're good to train, but having them in your life, I feel like is a whole nother story.
Krista, can you turn that mic a little more towards you?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Could you not hear
like
me this
literally,
whole time?
like turn it so it's facing directly at your mouth.
Yeah, if you keep a Malinois busy for 10 hours a day, it might be a good dog.
Right.
Other than that, they're going to go crazy.
All right. I was the only one there who had ever attempted anything like this. Most of the other employees thought I was crazy. In fact, at one point, I was expressly ordered not to work with the dogs in packs. How many dog training facilities do we see out there that tell their owners dogs shouldn't need to socialize with other dogs or be with other dogs?
So many.
And 90% of it is the problem. Lorenzo's Dog Training Academy. I've seen so many dogs go through board and trains there that literally when they ask them, how do I socialize my dog with other dogs? They say, you don't.
Are we naming places? I have a list.
No, just
in
that
my
one.
Pocket.
It's the only place I've ever publicly said I don't like. It made management nervous. But from the moment I discovered this method, I saw what an effective tool a pack of dogs can be in helping a dog that had problems. What I discovered was when a new and unstable dog was introduced to a group that had already formed a healthy bond, the pack actually influenced the newcomer to achieve that balanced state of mind. My job was to make sure the interaction between newcomer and existing pack members didn't get too intense. That's why in socialization, what is the only thing we do?
Watch the dogs in case something happens. We just babysit.
Kind of. Our sole job is to stay in there and make sure nobody kills anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Nothing else. We don't do anything. We don't, what is it? No touch, no talk, no eye contact. We literally stand there and we supervise because here's the thing. The dogs are going to figure it out. They're going to figure it out. And 9 out of 10 times when owners start getting scared and start seeing the stuff that they would normally step in and, no, please don't do that. Don't hump this dog. Don't air snap at this dog. Don't growl. Don't do this. Don't do that. It's fine. That's communication. Dogs have to communicate with each other. No differently than we have to tell dogs, I don't like what you're doing, or I like what you're doing. Other dogs have to tell each other, I like what you're doing, I don't like what you're doing.
You know what I think is so interesting is that like a lot of training facilities are so like not into socialization, but I don't know what the movement's called, like dogs playing with dogs. Like there's these like old rescue ladies just like taking all these pit bulls and rescues and just like putting them in packs. Like no training tools.
It's a mentality.
Like,
honestly.
it really is. I think it's so funny though. Like, how are you a trained professional? Then we just have Barb crazy. On her weekends. Like,
It is really interesting. I mean, that's why. Are you guys familiar with the organization Dogs Playing for Life?
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you? Oh, you should look into it because it's awesome. So Dogs Playing for Life is now I don't know all of the specifics of it, but Dogs Playing for Life is essentially this organization that started going around to different shelters and coaching them through best practices as far as handling, basically helping shelters understand the dogs in the shelters better, and most specifically, helping implement play groups into shelters, right? So Cuyahoga County Animal Shelter, Dogs Play for Life came and did like a workshop with them, and that's when they started their play group, right? And it's interesting. They released a statement, I think maybe a couple months ago or something, just talking about all of the different places they've helped and creating the play groups. And basically the biggest reason for it is because all of these dogs were getting mislabeled as dog aggressive. I think that's what really started it. And their number one goal was to make sure people understood there really is not a correlation between dog reactivity and dog aggression, right? And they show that through showing them how to socialize those dogs. And I think it's an awesome organization.
Well, I think with COVID especially, it should show people what is it like when you don't interact with people for a very long time.
Oh, that's a great example. Yeah.
And it's the same thing with dogs. Like if you keep a dog cooped up away from other dogs for ever, and then you see a dog, it doesn't even know what to do.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with a person. Like, I forgot how to interact with people. You get crazy. You go a little stir crazy. So
that's why we're forcing Krista to do more of these.
Yeah.
I interact a lot. I'm super social.
No, that's a really good point too, because like how many times do we socialize a dog and like they're just scared? Like we rarely see a dog coming in aggressive.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Back to the book. As long as I monitored and stopped any aggressive, exclusive, or defensive behavior. What is an exclusive behavior? I don't know. On either side of the encounter, the new dog would eventually adjust its behavior to fit in with the others. With humans as with dogs, in fact, with all pack-oriented species, it's in our genetic best interest to try to fit in, to get along with others of our kind. I was simply exploiting this very natural genetic drive. By working with dogs in packs, I observed that they could accelerate one another's healing processes much faster than a human trainer could. As soon as I earned a reputation at the facility as a reliable hard worker, I soon earned a reputation at the facility as a reliable hard worker. But the more I developed my own ideas about dog psychology, the unhappier I became there. I guess I didn't hide my discontent very well. One client, a successful business owner who was especially thrilled with how I handled this golden retriever, had been watching me for a while and was impressed with both my skills and my work ethic. One day he approached me and said, "You don't look too happy here. Do you want to come work for me?" I asked him what I would be doing for him, thinking of course it would have something to do with dogs. I was a little let down when he said, "You'd be washing limousines. I own a fleet of them." Krista, don't leave Miracle Canine Training to wash limousines.
I think that's my dream.
Emily, you need it.
I mean, it worked out for Cesar, so.
Yeah. Wow, nice offer. But I had come to America to be a dog trainer. Still, he was a very impressive man, the kind of strong, confident businessman I wanted to become someday. Then he sweetened the pot for me by telling me that as his employee, I would have my own car. I couldn't afford a car on my own then, and in Los Angeles, that's practically like not being able to afford legs. It took a couple of weeks to decide, but finally I agreed. Once again, a guardian angel who didn't even know me had helped set the stage for the next phase of my journey. So all of this to say, Cesar Millan did not like the dog training facility and left to wash limousines.
I mean,
So,
I might leave to wash limousines if I get a car out of it.
what it is. All right, so we're going to skip a little bit. This talks a little bit about how then he started to build a reputation and work on his own and start to become a dog walker and all that good stuff. And we're going to skip forward a little bit here. Here we go. You got a little picture of dogs laying together for you. Is that the
Thank
one
you.
you're talking
That's
about?
what I was talking
Krista, you wanna
about.
see it?
Oh, that's the picture.
It's a great.
Oh my
That's not the
gosh.
one. This is a different one. All right.
But look, all the same breed.
Comments on anything so far? No? Moving forward? All right. Next section. Americans and dogs. Humans who love too much. When I was a boy in Mexico watching the Lassie and Rin Tin Tin shows, I was always entertained by those superstar... What's so funny about that?
Just the way you said Rin Tin Tin.
Superstar Dogs Adventures, but I thought that, of course, everyone else watching also realized that these shows were just Hollywood fantasies. When Lassie barked 4 times and Timmy said, "What's that, Lassie? Fire? The hose? No, the barn's on fire. Thanks, girl. Let's go." I knew and assumed everybody else knew. That real dogs don't act like that.
Are you sure you weren't a good reader in middle school?
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing.
When I came to America, I was shocked to discover that many dog owners unconsciously believed that Lassie really did understand what Timmy was saying. I learned that here, the general perception of dogs was that they were all like Lassie. Basically, humans in dog suits. It took me a while to process this, but once I'd been here a while, I saw that most pet owners did, on some level, believe that their animals, be they dogs, cats, birds, or goldfish, were indeed human in everything but the outfit, and they treated them accordingly.
Humans in dog suits.
I don't know. Yeah. It's like
Why don't we have someone in a dog suit advertising on the street for us?
holding a
with
sign, flipping it around?
Yeah.
Seamus would do it.
Oh.
Seamus would. I need to interview people while they're doing it
Seamus
also.
would be good at flipping the
Seamus on
sign.
the street. I'm going to have Paige sound bite that and put it before all of them.
I love that.
Something just turned off again. How's that one?
Yours.
Did it just shut off again?
Yeah.
damn it.
This is like the third time.
All right. Well, we're going to have to.
It might be full.
Memory card's full?
I don't know. It won't record or anything now.
Unreal.
We're going to take a quick break, maybe.
Um,
Figure this out.
Unreal. Can we just do this? Can we just move your camera so it sees all of us real quick?
Yeah.
And then we'll figure this out next time.
All right. Continue.
All right, guys. This is the 2-camera issue that we're having right now. It's interesting. Everybody thinks that their dogs understand them. Everybody thinks that they literally just know things,
Yeah.
right? They know when people are good or not good. They know when I'm sick. They know when I'm this. They know when I'm that. They don't understand those human things. They understand that you're acting different. They understand that there's different things going on and that you may be doing things differently than you normally would, but they don't understand that deeper side of things. People need to start realizing that. After I'd been in the United States for about 5 years, it finally hit me. That was the problem. America's dogs were so troubled because their owners thought they were human. They weren't allowed to be animals. In the land of the free, where everyone is supposed to be able to reach his or her limitless potential, these dogs were doing anything but. Certainly, they were being pampered. They had the best food, the best homes, the best grooming, and large helpings of love. But that wasn't all they wanted. They wanted to be dogs. I thought back to what I had learned in Mexico, where I spent countless hours watching the best dog trainers on earth, the dogs themselves. Thinking back to my natural relationship with them, I began to see how I could help dogs in the United States become happier, healthier creatures, and help their owners too. My method is not brain surgery. I didn't create it. Mother Nature did. My fulfillment formula is simple. For a balanced, healthy dog, a human must share exercise. What's the next one, Krista?
Discipline.
Emily, what's the next
And affection.
one? Oh, yeah. In that order. The order is vital, and I'll explain more about that later on. Why is that order? It is. It is
What?
broken down. He has these like little catchphrases
He's really good at that.
that are broken down in very simple ways. I mean, that is the formula, right? Fuck the affection. Put it to the side for a little bit. Exercise your dog, discipline your dog. If you eliminated affection altogether, you would have a balanced dog. The affection is for the human. He throws that in there for the human because it's not necessary otherwise. It's pretty crazy. Unfortunately, most American dog owners I meet don't get the fulfillment order right. They put affection as number one. In fact, many owners give their dogs nothing but affection. Affection, affection. Of course, I know they mean well, but their good intention can actually cause damage to dogs. I call these owners humans who love too much. Wink, wink. You may be reading this and thinking, I give my dog tons of affection because she's my baby, and she's fine. I have no behavioral problems with her. Indeed, you may have a dog that has a naturally passive, happy-go-lucky disposition, and you may never have a single problem with her. You may shower her with an excess of love and get nothing but that wondrous, unconditional dog love in return. You may consider yourself the luckiest dog owner in the world, with the world's most perfect dog. No, they don't think that. They think they're the best dog trainer in the world when they get that.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Thanks to your dog, you're happy and your life is fulfilled, and I'm happy for you. But please open your mind to the possibility that your dog may be missing some of the things she needs in her life to be happy and fulfilled as a dog. At the very least, I hope this book helps make you more aware of your dog's very species-specific needs and inspires you to find creative ways to help provide for them. What I'm about to share is the truth of my life experiences. These are the things I've personally learned and experienced and observed working with thousands of dogs for well over 20 years. I do believe from the deepest place in my heart that this is my mission, to help dogs and to spend my life learning everything they have to teach me. I see my career among dogs an eternal education. I am the student and they are the teachers. Let them help teach you what they've taught me. They've helped me to understand that what dogs really need isn't always what we want to give them.
Are we commenting on that?
Feel free.
I have so much to say about affection, man. I think it's funny that a lot of people have these sweet little fur babies and think that they're the greatest and don't have any issues, and they just coddle them and whatever. But I really see a lot of those dogs, like when they're outside of their environment that they're comfortable with, that's when they have all the issues. But I think people don't see that because they don't actually take their dog in different settings too, amongst like other issues with affection. But
yeah, I would completely agree. And you know why I think a lot of that is because we have learned to adapt to our dogs in a specific environment, right? When we see problems that our dog shows us, the first thing that we ask ourselves is not, how do we work on this problem and improve on this problem? The first thing that we ask ourselves is, what can I do to stop this problem from being a problem, right? If you're having issues with your guests running and jumping on people that come in, you put your dog in a crate when people come in.
your guests running and jumping on people?
You guests coming in. Yeah. See, I told you, I
What
can't
kind
talk.
of friends do you have?
My guests come over and jump on me. You know, when your dog is running away, right? We keep our dog on a leash, you know, or we put a fence on the yard. When our dog jumps the fence, we build a taller fence. You know what I mean? Like literally, like every problem we have as owners, we look at a human solution to how to manage that problem. I did an assessment with a client the other day. This was a very serious situation. So they've had this dog now for, I think, 2 or 3 years. I think the dog is about 5 years old now. And the dog hates the husband, right? Hates the husband. She's like, he's hated him since the day we got him, right? 70% of the time the dog is fine, but 30% of the time the human will wake up in bed, like the husband, to the dog literally on top of him, snarling and barking in his face.
Yeah.
Did you do the phone?
I booked that. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it was crazy.
It was
right?
crazy
She showed me
listening to
actual videos of it also, like of it happening. Like the dog is literally on top of the guy, barking and growling. The guy, if he tries to get up from the couch to go get a drink from the fridge, the dog will run over and start lunging at him. And they waited now, again, I'm not shaming them for this because they signed up for training, right? They're actively looking for a solution for it, but it had to hit a point of being where they could literally no longer manage it anymore, right? The last situation that flipped things over the edge was the human was sitting on the couch and hanging out, just literally doing nothing. And I think he moved wrong or something. The dog runs over, starts growling at him, snapping at him, going and trying to bite him and stuff. And the female said that 9 out of 10 times it wasn't a problem because she could call the dog away when it started doing that. And this time was the first time that she could not get the dog away from him. And literally both of them were there. And the guy said he was terrified because nobody had control over the dog and nobody knew what they can do in that situation and nobody could move, right? How do you let your situation in your house get that toxic, right? How do we and frankly, they were feeling bad for the dog. They were starting to look for external reasons why the dog was doing it. She said at one point in the assessment that it was creating conflict between them because when the dog would start doing it, she would get mad at him because it's like, why did you get up to go to the fridge to get a drink? You know the dog is going to do that.
There it is. Honestly, I've been in a situation, not like that extreme, but in a situation where like myself and the other person I was living with were not on board with the dog, and like it causes so much contention in the house. Like if one person wants to just over love and make excuses, like it really does rule your life.
Yeah.
It's
remember Zuko and Joby too.
Oh, yeah.
they literally had like 2 baby gates and had to stack boxes on either side and take that down just to go into the kitchen, put it back up to like separate the dogs every single day, multiple times a day. Just like the amount of effort people put in to manage their dogs is insane.
It's wild.
But then those owners really put in that effort into actually training their dogs
100%.
too.
Yeah. Because you figure if you're gonna try that hard to make it work, and this is why I say I'm not necessarily blaming the owner, because 90% of the time the information is not there as far as what to do. Right? Yes, there's things we can look at differently as far as like, okay, cool, this dog is waking the husband up, growling and snapping. Like, why the fuck is the dog not in a crate at night? You know what I mean? Like there are certain things that you look at and you're like, okay, cool, you kind of fucked up on that one, right? But 90% of the time, they just don't know what to do. And they need that education as far as how to work through those situations. The same deal as a lot of these stubborn dogs we work with. Stubborn, right?
Yeah. I
use stubborn subjectively. I think 90% of the time, people that say dogs are stubborn, they're confused. But the ones that actually are like headstrong, just don't want to do it, once you get them past that hurdle, they're some of the best dogs you could work with, because they put all of that energy they put into not doing it into doing it, and they're like, all right, I got this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just feel like that's such an extreme version of, like, instead of living with your dog, you're living around your dog.
100%.
You know?
100%. Yeah. All right, back to the book. This is an interesting one. I bookmarked this one. The proper way to meet a dog. So we get to talk about this here. There's even a couple picture examples, which I like. And we're going to talk about this, and we're going to see if it's correct or not. All right. This isn't a book about dog biology, but there's a reason why it's important to know how your dog's body and mind interrelate, and how your dog developed from a puppy he or she once was. Its mother is the first introduction a puppy will have in the world. She's the first other being a puppy will meet. Now contrast the calm, assertive scent and energy emitted by a mother dog with how we normally introduce ourselves to a dog. What do we usually do when we see a cute little puppy?
Oh my God, I run up to it.
Christa loves puppies.
Krista does all of the things I'm about to
I
say.
lose myself.
Now, in Krista's fairness, Krista knows how to not create problems as well. So,
And when it's like 4 months old, what's gonna happen?
what's going to happen? Turn into a monster.
Yeah.
Ooh, we exclaim loudly, usually in a high-pitched voice we reserve for babies. Krista, what's your noise?
No, it's too extreme.
It's really high. It's very high-pitched.
Is it?
Yeah,
Yes.
because you're like,
Come here, you cute little thing. This sounds literally exact. I think that's his exact things. By doing this, we are introducing ourselves to the dog using sound first. And not only sound, but usually very excited, emotionally charged sound. What we're doing is projecting excited, emotional energy, which is the furthest from calm, assertive energy that we can get. To a dog, emotional energy is weak and often negative energy. So from the get-go, we're telling the dogs that we don't exactly have it all together. Now, I don't know if necessarily emotional energy is always perceived as negative energy, but I will say that emotional energy, I do think dogs like project as weak, right? It is, it's insecure, it's emotional, it's unbalanced, I think is kind of the correct word for it. And dogs perceive unbalancedness as weak, I believe. And what happens next? We approach the dog, not the other way around. We rush up to her, bend down to her level, and give her affection, usually a pat on the head, or in today's society, kissing them right on the mouth. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've had a lot of owners call lately and say they got bit on the face because they literally want to go and kiss their dog on the nose.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's sad, but like it's become a reoccurring trend.
Yeah. What more of a way to invade your dog's space?
Unbelievable. I mean,
Or
it's
even random dogs. People do it
Yeah.
to dogs they've never met
or
before.
even people. If Kate just ran up to me full speed and went to go like kiss me on the nose, I would be like, what's going on? I don't know. Whatever. Before she even knows who we are. By this point, the dog has already figured out that we really don't understand anything about her. You don't get me. It's like the angsty teenager. she's also getting the clear message that we're coming to her. And from that point on, we are signing a contract that says we are the followers and she is the leader. Do you blame her? After we've made such an unstable first impression. First picture here. Wrong way to meet a dog. It's a little girl hugging a dog around the neck. It's a nice photo there. Right way to meet a dog. The girl's just standing there and the dog is sniffing her. Let's replay the first meeting scenario using dog psychology instead of human psychology. The proper way to approach a new dog is not to approach her at all. Dogs never approach each other face on unless they're challenging each other. And pack leaders never approach pack followers. The followers always approach them. There is such a thing as etiquette in the dog world, and a canine Emily post, I'm not sure what that is, would demand that when meeting a dog, you not make eye contact, you maintain calm, assertive energy, and you allow the dog to come to you. How will this dog check you out? By sniffing, of course. And don't be alarmed if she sniffs your crotch. Of course, among humans, it would be considered downright offensive to sniff someone's genitals upon first meeting.
Thanks, Cesar.
I just think the fact that he used the word genitals.
Their genitals.
Oh, man. But that's how dogs greet each other all the time. They usually don't mean anything sexual by it.
I'm really glad he's specifying this.
Yes. He's getting down to the science here.
It's simply a way that they get important information about each other. Gender, age, what the other dog had for lunch. I don't know if they get that from...
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
From the genitals.
The same kibble you've had every single day. I smell it.
For your entire life.
Karina.
A dog who sniffs you is getting similar information about you. While sniffing you, the dog is reading not only your scent, but also the all-important energy you're projecting.
Your chakra.
Now, here's actually an interesting thing to talk about here. They kind of say that like emotional states of mind and emotionally charged energies
Puts off pheromones or something.
Yeah, and it puts out different odors. Just like, like a diabetic alert dogs, right? It's an odor that you're teaching. So I they say, dogs can always tell. You can't lie to the dog, right? About that kind of stuff. It is very, very, very possible that when you're in those states of mind, you're putting off certain odors that the dog is smelling, which is why you can act all day long or do the correct things, but unless you actually believe it, the dog's not going to pick up on it. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting point. Now, that dog may end up not being very interested in you and may wander off in search of other, more fascinating scents, or she may stick around to explore you further. Once a dog has decided to initiate contact with you by nuzzling or rubbing up against you, only then should you offer affection to her, and save the eye contact for when you really know each other, sort of like not going too far on the first date. It's... So here's... It's...
I think Cesar has some pent-up energy.
Possibly.
It's kind of feeling like that. This stuff is really interesting. This part in particular, I think. Now, there are a couple of things that I personally do a little bit differently. Now, if I want to interact with a dog, typically I'm not going to wait for them to come to me. I am going to make them come to me, right? Mm-hmm. Because in addition to the whole talk of, is the dog, are you going and being a follower? Is the dog coming to you or being a follower? I think that by making the dog come to me or asking them to do something before giving affection, I think that in addition to doing it in the proper order and not going into their territory, which is really the problem with going up to the dog, I think that I think it's putting them into a compliant state of mind right off the rip, which makes them even more submissive, which then allows my interactions to be more successful. But I mean, even stuff like save the eye contact for when you really know each other better. And frankly, save the fucking petting for when you really know each other better if there's a dog that has problems, right? People ask all the time, how they want to see not how do I develop a relationship with a dog over time so that they're okay with people. They want to know how do I make a dog instantaneously okay with new people, which is impossible. Mm-hmm. It will literally never happen, right? There are certain dogs that need time in order to develop that relationship. Just like there are people out there that are a little socially anxious that are going to take some time to get comfortable around a certain group. The way that I interact with my friends, I would never interact with somebody that I don't know. I get really uncomfortable around new people that I don't know. Even right now, I'm comfortable talking to all of you guys because I've known you guys for years, right? So we have a a built-in relationship already at this point where we can
Yep.
interact in an appropriate way. And it's the same thing with dogs. You can't skip that stuff.
I just think when you educate the owners on what they're, because they have unrealistic expectations of their dogs
Yep.
in those situations. Once you educate them, they kind of like understand, oh, I don't need to force my dog to be best friends with my guests or whatever, or my guests don't need to interact with my dogs.
It's
And
dog dependent.
Yeah.
Again, so I talked last week about Vera and Kate's brother and him being in town and how she loves to go and just like sleep in the bed with him and stuff, right? But that's a particular kind of dog that can develop a relationship very quickly. There are people out there that are extreme extroverts that could be their complete self and completely open with any new people they meet immediately. So it's interesting.
Don't force it.
Don't force it. Don't try too hard. Sometimes, after examining a new person, a dog will lose interest and begin to wander away. Naturally, the dog lover will reach out after her and attempt to give her affection in order to bring her back. It's like dating, right? Like, girl starts to fade off, not act interested. You got to try to reel him back in.
it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Push him away further. With some dogs, this can be perceived as an unwanted advance and can precipitate. Precipitate. Oh, no. I'm thinking, what's rain? Precipitation.
Precipitation.
Oh, it's the same word. Yeah, all right. Precipitate a bite. Even with a friendly dog, I usually suggest that people don't offer affection right away. Let the dog get to know you, feel comfortable with you, and do something to earn your affection first. This advice almost never goes over very well because we humans get such a strong sense of satisfaction from sharing affection with dogs. What most animal lovers don't understand is that by sharing affection first, we are not doing the dog any favors. We might be fulfilling our own needs. After all, dogs are so sweet and appealing and soft and fluffy. And as it turns out, they are important to both our physical and mental health as human beings. As animal behaviorist Patricia B. McConnell points out in her book, The Other End of the Leash, why we do what we do around dogs. I've actually never read that book, but I've heard good things. Petting an animal can actually have significant physical benefits for people. According to McConnell, studies have shown that stroking a dog reduces heart rate and blood pressure in humans, as well as in the dog, and releases chemicals in our brain that help soothe us and counteract the effects of stress. But when we come to a dog we barely know and offer unconditional affection right away, we may be creating a serious imbalance in our relationship with that dog. Particularly if we are to be the dog's owner, a simple first meeting like this is often where behavioral problems begin. Starts from the second you meet the dog. Just like in the human world, to a dog, a first impression counts a lot. Many dog lovers may feel angry at me here, and let me make it clear that I understand that people have the best intentions in mind when giving a dog affection first. To reach out to another being with affection is a natural impulse for most of us, and part of what is most beautiful about being human. But we must try to remember that by doing so, we're fulfilling our own need for affection, not the dog's. Like most mammals, dogs do need and crave physical affection in our lives, but it's not the first and most important thing they need from you. If they get affection first, it tips the scale of your relationship in the wrong direction. It's a good section. It's important. Emily, comments?
Yeah. Didn't you say fuck affection earlier?
I believe I did.
Yeah. So I think that like
It's important. I'm not discrediting it, but initially, fuck the affection.
right, absolutely.
Right?
And I think that like with affection, like people just have such a skewed perception of what affection is. I think affection can just be like a positive verbal cue, like good, I like what you're doing. And that's where we use the good marker, right? And just like a little scritch on the head, but I think people are so
A scoochie. I believe
Sprit.
Bridget called it a scoochie with Vinny.
scooch.
That's a butt scooch, though.
No, I don't believe she was referring to it as a butt scooch.
Yeah, I call them like scritchies.
Scoochie.
Yeah.
Even a scoochie.
But like just also knowing like what state of mind to feed into. Like I think that saying fuck affection isn't wrong, but just like also just using it less, like making sure a dog has a clear
Over affection.
Yeah, that's everyone's doing that,
Also,
right?
if us giving affection to dogs helps us like health-wise, blood pressure, blah blah blah, and relieve like emotional stress in some way, we're kind of like outletting that onto the dog, I think.
Big time.
If we're like stressed out and we use the dog to cope through that, the dog's feeding into that.
So it's interesting because then you get into some conversations about like, okay, cool. So do we currently have more like psychological issues with people than we used to? And is that why we're seeing those problems with dogs? Right? I don't know. But, you know, for one reason or another, people were not projecting those emotions on dogs 25 years ago. Right? So I don't know. It's
I think we're having the same psychological issues, but I think like now we talk about it a lot more. And I think now and because we're growing, or like the dog industry is growing so much and people have pets more and more and more, I think it's kind of both. Like
Sure.
we're not like bottling up our emotions as much, but we're also getting pets more. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I think
I mean, we have I've had some conversations with other friends, you know, about these types of things like outside of dogs and stuff. And the world is getting so much more complicated. And there's so much more media and attention and this and that and all of these things you need to process that are just being tossed on you.
Yeah.
You know, that you used to, that we're not as humans designed to handle. Right.
that's true.
And I think that can turn into more, you know, like the people that, just like with dogs, when we start projecting more of things on them, they can't handle that. Like dogs are designed to handle X, or certain temperaments are designed to handle X amount of input, right? Humans are designed, or certain humans can handle more or less X amount of input, right? So as more and more is being created in the world, we're seeing more and more people that are developing issues because it's getting overloaded. So I don't know. And a lot of those people have dogs.
It's true.
It's just interesting. It's like, and I look at these things not to try to like figure out the world or anything, but I look at these things to look at like, are we going to see these problems get better or worse in the future with dogs? Like, are we moving to a society where humans cannot have a domesticated relationship with an animal? Do you know what I'm saying?
Maybe.
I think that people are they're definitely creating the issues, but then it's getting to like a boiling point of where then they start seeking dog training, and dog training is definitely becoming way more popular than it used to be. Maybe that'll kind of like build momentum and people just
like a relationship with a dog should be this like organic, natural, like we're in like that kind of like what people seek out when they go to the woods and go camping and do all sorts of things like that, right? And can you develop like do these two species, humans and dogs, have the ability to have that same healthy, balanced relationship as the world gets more complicated? I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I feel like we're in a culture too where like giving up is very socially acceptable. Like divorce is super high, you know, like it's acceptable to just not have to put in the work to like build on relationships with humans. So isn't it fair to say that like it's who's going to want to put in the work with their dog, especially when they see this dog as like their essentially what they unload on, you know, like that's their
stress ball.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and then so like cityscapes. I mean, New York, Chicago, LA, you know, these big cities where there is no place to take your dog to get away. Like everyday situations are you have to go to work and your dog's in your apartment or whatever all day, and then you get home, there's nowhere you can take this dog that's not overly crazily stimulating.
Right.
You know, you're taking him on the busy New York street. Like that's something people and dogs have never seen.
Yeah, we're
you know?
definitely putting our dogs through way more situations than they used to be put in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like 20 years ago, nobody owned a dog and took it everywhere with them.
No. Like having a dog in New York City was kind of like a weird thing,
Yeah.
I think, you know?
I would agree.
And now it's like, you have to have one. And
That's
you have to
why
have the
potty-
baby stroller for your dog now.
not to say
Stroller-
that. Oh, go ahead.
I was just making a joke. Stroller and potty pads. That's
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah.
And there are ways to like exercise your dog or like get that like adding balance in those cities.
Oh, yeah,
scapes,
definitely.
But it's just like, do people actually want to do that? I feel like most people just see their dogs as like essentially just like a teddy bear at their house, you know, just not something that has like all these needs that need to be fulfilled.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and most of the stuff you're doing still, though, is artificial to what you would to actually do with your dog, you know?
Right.
Like, you can't just go take a hike usually.
Absolutely.
Like, it's like a huge thing. You have to take your dog on the train and go 45 minutes out of the city,
Right.
something like that.
So, you were saying that there are, all of these different ways to exercise your dog and stuff like that. So, what's really common in places like New York or Chicago or bigger cities and stuff is treadmill training dogs, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people want to treadmill train their dogs, which I think is good to develop a physical outlet for your dog and stuff.
But
Do you
it's only
really
one-
think that actually has the same benefit as going out for a walk with your dog, though?
No.
Like, it may be physically stimulating, but there's no mental stimulation.
I completely agree. I think so much of it, like we talked about, what is the purpose of the walk?
I think
Go
for
ahead.
I think for like Malinois and stuff where they just have so much fucking like energy, that's good, but you still have to balance it out with.
Yeah, but so like what I always try to look at, like, what is the purpose of the walk, right? The purpose of the walk in my eyes is not to physically exercise your dog, right? It's to provide a physical, mental, and social release for the dog, right? Which is why I always say, like, if we walk a dog in a new place, for example, right, the dog is probably going to be more tired than if you walked in an old place or somewhere that they were more used to, right? Any opportunity we have to get the dog out of this kind of like autopilot state of mind, the better, right? Because the 3 types of socialization, people, dogs, environments, right? The walk is tackling that environmental cue, right? If I try to take my dogs to different parks every now and then, and I will definitely notice a difference when I get them out to those types of places. I know you do that. You take Doof everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah.
And do you notice, like, what do you notice?
Everywhere.
This is a good question. What do you notice gets him the most tired? Or the most, like, fulfilled, or whatever you want to call it,
I think hiking for sure, because it's more strenuous. He actually is like off leash running around, and there's so much new stuff there. But I do try to mix it up with, like, sometimes we play fetch, sometimes you just can run around, sometimes you're in a heel position next to me and you're not allowed to move out of that too. I don't think anything tires him out though, so I can't really answer that.
How often when you're hiking with him, how often are you working on things while you're
Obedience
hiking?
stuff?
Yeah.
I think hiking.
What's your routine for hiking typically look like?
Usually just recall and then healing next to me, but it depends. I do try to mix it up, and sometimes you're next to me the entire walk and you get no release to run around. Sometimes you can run around and mess around and do whatever. So it kind of depends. Sometimes I just really structure it, and sometimes I just let him run around.
Emily, so Honeycomb, how old is Honeycomb?
Timeless.
Ageless.
Oh my gosh.
She's like,
Does not age.
Like 2, maybe?
sounds about right. She's like 8 or 9.
Okay, yeah, so she's a little bit older now, so it seems like she's kind of just like
Bebop.
kind of like Vera. She just kind of goes through the motions and stuff, and is pretty chill most of the time.
Yeah.
Is that kind of accurate?
Yeah, absolutely.
So with B's a little younger, right?
Yes.
2, somewhere around there, 1, 2. What do you notice as far as like the difference in them versus their needs, their energy levels, the things you do with them, stuff like that? Anything?
Yeah, there's like a vast difference. Like I could essentially, like, I do a bed stay with Honeycomb every day while I'm getting ready, and now with B as well. But like B needs a lot more mental stimulation, also physical stimulation. I like, since she was like out of social the last couple of weeks, like she has been she paces a lot, so like I've had to do a lot more duration work. And I noticed like the biggest, like when she's most exhausted is when I'm teaching her something new. Like yesterday when I was doing that photo shoot, like getting her up on that mop bucket, like easier said than done.
Yeah.
She went home and like passed out. And like I think that, yeah, really that mental stimulation with your dog is like huge, whereas like Honeycomb really doesn't care about that kind of stuff. She's never been that kind of dog though. So
Yeah.
it is interesting from dog to dog.
Yeah.
It's interesting. All right, so we're going to do one last little passage in here, and then we'll start to wrap this up. We're at about the 1.5 hour mark. I kind of wanted to hit 2 hours today, but that's all right. We'll just do 1.5 hours. All right, so recognizing the animal in your dog, because I feel like this kind of summarizes pretty much everything we've talked about so far. So we'll end with this. What do you think of when you think the word animal? No, that was wrong. What do you think of when you think of the world animal? Or maybe that was a typo. What do you think of when you think of the world animal, is what it says in this book.
There's been a few typos.
Ooh.
No, I've probably just said most things wrong, but this one is actually says that.
I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, I don't either. Yeah. I think of nature, fields, forests, and jungles. I think of wolves whose territories extend for miles and miles in their wild state. I think of two words in particular, natural and freedom. Every animal, including the human animal, is born with a deep-seated need to be free. But when we bring animals into our lives, by definition, they are not free anymore, at least not in the way that nature intended them to be. We contain them when we bring them into our environment. Most of the time, we do it for good and well-intentioned reasons. But regardless of whether it's a kitten, a chimpanzee, a horse, or a dog, whether we provide a one-room apartment or a mansion as big as Paris Hilton's, again, name dropping. There's a lot of name drop. I
Yeah.
trained
Was he
Paris Hilton's dog.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, she had like 2 chihuahuas or something. He talks about later in this book.
Oh, I didn't know that.
All animals still have the same needs that Mother Nature. How on top of things do you think Paris Hilton? How effective do you think that dog training was?
Zero.
Zero.
I don't think she's as dumb as she puts on.
Well, yeah, but especially back then,
Yeah, she was
everything was just a blur.
2006, Paris Hilton did not know
Yeah.
what was
He's
going
like
on.
training your dog.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah,
Sure. Wasn't she on like a reality TV show or something?
Simple life.
Yeah.
Was it a
Simple life.
Oh man, you remember all those shows like that? And remember Tila Tequila?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Or was the clock guy's name?
Oh, Flava
Flav.
Flav. All animals still have the same needs that Mother Nature originally gave them, and if we're going to make the choice of having them live with us, we have a responsibility to fulfill those natural animal needs in them if we want them to be happy and balanced. Animals are beautifully simple. To them, life is also very simple. It's we who make it complicated for them by not allowing them to be who they are, by not understanding or even trying to speak their language, and by neglecting to give them what nature intended for them to have. I underlined in here we contain them when we bring them into our environment. So the common places we see dogs misbehave in are the places that we have man-made barriers in, right? Windows, doors, leashes, fences, cars, all these different types of things that dogs don't understand, because that is what eliminates their freedom, right? That is not natural for them. So we can't eliminate those things entirely. Like, it's kind of worded in here like, don't contain your dog, right? Now, sure, if we just never had a barrier, like, our dog would probably be fine, right? They probably wouldn't have a lot of these behavioral issues, but we also would probably see a lot of people that were just like, screw this person, I'm out of here, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to teach them these things, right? That's where training comes into play, right? Teaching them leashes, teaching them barriers, teaching them what all these things mean so we can eliminate those problems. Back to the book. The most important thing to know about animals is that they all live in the present. All the time. It's not that they don't have memories. They do. It's just that they don't obsess over the past or the future. When someone brings me a dog who attacked someone the day before, I look at her dog as a dog who's probably unbalanced and needs help today, but I don't think, oh, she's the dog who attacked a man yesterday. Now, that's kind of bullshit, because I definitely, if a dog attacks me the day before, I'm probably going to be thinking, this dog attacked somebody yesterday. I should probably be aware of that.
Yeah.
But that dog isn't thinking about what she did yesterday, and she is not planning the strategy for her next bite. That I would agree with.
Yeah.
But you do have to be aware.
You still got to be mindful of that.
Let's be mindful of that still. She didn't premeditate the first bite either. She only reacted. She's in the moment, and she needs help in that moment. That's perhaps the most wonderful revelation I have had from a life working with dogs. Every day when I go to work, dogs remind me to live in the present. Maybe I had a fender bender yesterday, or I'm worried about a bill I have to pay tomorrow. But being around animals, I am always reminded that the only real moment in life is now. Although humans are animals too, we are the only species that dwells on the past and worries about the future. We are probably not the only species that is aware of its own death, but we certainly are the only animals who actively fear it. This goes back to the conversation about the world changing. cavemen probably didn't worry too much about the past or the future. But as more inputs have come about, we care more about what's going on yesterday, tomorrow, in the future. Creates more problems, creates more instability.
Cesar got real deep in that passage. He got very deep. It went from dogs to life coaching.
I mean, that's essentially Cesar.
Yeah.
It's back
Coaching
and
the
forth.
human.
Yeah. He's not a dog trainer. He's a human trainer.
That's it.
Whisperer, though.
He's a whisperer.
Yeah.
You got these damn dog whisperers. Back to the book. Living in the moment, what animals do naturally, has become the holy grail for many human beings. Some people spend years learning to meditate or chant. I don't know about chanting. And spend thousands of dollars going on retreats to monasteries on high mountaintops, trying to learn to live in the moment, if even for a little while. But almost all humans can't help but lose sleep over the past or the future some of the time, unless something dramatic happens in our lives. For example, take a person who almost dies. From that point on, suddenly the sky is beautiful. The trees are beautiful. His wife is beautiful. Everything is beautiful. Finally, he understands the concept of living in the moment. Animals don't need to learn that lesson because they are born with that insight. Human beings, of course, are also the only animals who use language. Though scientists have recently discovered that many animals, including primates, cetaceans, which means whales and dolphins, birds and even bees, to name a few, have more intricate and complex communication systems than we ever imagined. Humans still remain the only animals who can put together complex words, thoughts, and concepts to create speech. Speech is our number one form of communication, and because we are so reliant on it, we neglect using our other four senses, or the sixth sense I describe in Chapter 2, the universal sense of energy. I'll repeat. All animals communicate using energy constantly. Energy is beingness. Energy is who you are and what you are doing at any given moment. That's how animals see you. That's how your dog sees you. Your energy in that present moment defines who you are.
Dang. Do you feel enlightened, Christa?
Yeah.
I think that is a really cool point too, though. Like with our program, we use a lot of like you always talk about clear communication. So like, yes, we train dogs, but it's also like that state of mind too, you know?
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because people do have the ability to turn it around very quickly. I mean, you're talking over the course of like tomorrow. If you want to make the switch and be like, I'm going to care about this, I am going to present myself in a different way, and I'm going to believe myself with it, a dog would pick up on that. Like you said right there, they only understand the energy that you're putting off in that moment. Right? And that's why I could switch so fast. If I change my energy from what it's at right now to, oh my God, super excitable and crazy and wild and stuff like that, my dog's going to switch immediately. And then if I go back to calm, my dog's going to switch immediately. Right? They really do live about those things in the moment. And, you know, going back to the don't dwell on the past and, you know, the rescue side of things, of caring about the dog's story and stuff like that. So many of those things are irrelevant. You know, there's definitely, you know, it's not that dogs can't have past traumas with things and stuff. And have developed certain associations or habits because of those things. But for the most part, those things are pretty irrelevant to actually working through the specific problems you're having currently with your dog.
It's funny how people like try to like victimize their dog almost to justify their coddling in a way, you know, want their dog to have like a sad past. But I think energy and training does really matter because knowing when to use like a calm energy versus when to like amp it up a little bit.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and also that like victim mentality. How weird is it that we will keep our dog in that state of mind, whereas like if a human's going through that, we go through rehab. Like we are like having to push ourselves through that. Like, why do you want your dog, if they did go through something horrible, do you want them to relive that every day? Like that's weird.
Yeah.
Like isn't that like Munchausen's by proxy?
What is that word you just used?
Munchausen's by proxy.
I do not know that.
Emily's just diagnosing all her clients.
Yeah.
Do you have Munchausen?
Explain that word, please.
Munchausen's by
please.
proxy.
Wait, is that one word or two words?
Munchausen's
2 words.
by proxy. So it's
By proxy is one word. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, by proxy is two.
By proxy.
Yeah.
Munchausen's by proxy. Okay.
It's basically that movie. Is that what you're talking
Yeah.
about? Yeah.
Yes.
What movie?
What's it?
It's where the mom basically treats her daughter like she's sick.
Gypsy
and ill.
Rose.
Oh, I know what you're talking
The
about.
mom had Munchausen's by proxy.
So like keeping like essentially just like keeping something sick, like and
Gotcha.
yeah, like keeping.
Interesting.
that's not even like
Yeah.
your dog's not sick. Your dog's not.
Wasn't it the same premise of Bubble Boy? Do you remember that movie?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
Didn't she say he was sick?
Yeah.
He had to stay in the bubble his whole
Just
life,
Bubble
and then
Boy.
at the end, he
Yeah.
rips himself out thinking he's gonna die.
Yeah.
And he was actually fine his whole life.
Are these dogs all just
They're
living
all-
in bubbles?
Yeah, they're just all bubble
Living in
boys.
Adam Sandler movies.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's funny. Interesting. Yeah, that definitely is it. I mean, I can imagine, like, I don't have any deep-rooted trauma in my life or anything, but I could imagine if I did and I had somebody that was reiterating that I had that trauma to me every single day, I can't even imagine the emotional strain that would put on somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, let's move them forward, like
Yeah.
you got them out of there, so like
Yeah.
it's time to give a good life.
Yeah. But a lot of people, I think, tend to like act like their dog was victimized or did go through a traumatic past, even if they don't know. You
Yeah.
don't know, just if your dog acts like a little
yeah.
timid or whatever.
Especially if they rescue it. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I went in and rescued this dog from the shelter, and it had to have been awful there, and it's
Probably
like,
abused by men because
Yeah.
it doesn't like men.
yeah, you definitely create a story,
Great stories.
Yeah.
story in your head.
That was one of the highlighted parts I had in here coming up here for
Oh,
next
really?
time.
Yeah,
Yeah, at the rescue job, like I did a bunch of owner surrenders, and most of the time people were really sad to be giving up their dogs,
Yeah.
So like,
They're not all coming from these traumatic pasts or anything.
Yeah.
right, but I mean, full circle. Let's give them like the freedom that they deserve. Like,
Yeah.
get them in a better state of mind.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, I think we're like an hour and 45 minutes in here. Wrap this up. So yeah, those exciting little passages from Caesar's Way. I mean, we're like halfway through this book. We might keep cruising through this next time. Maybe we'll have you guys come finish off the book. We'll see.
yeah.
Um,
Get back here.
So welcome.
So interesting stuff. Again, this is the first dog training book I ever read. It's very important. I think a lot of people should kind of start learning a little more about this stuff. So this is the kind of stuff we're trying to do on the cast, the podcast.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, this is David the Dog Trainer podcast episode number 2. If you're interested in learning more about what we do, at Miracle Canine Training on Facebook and Instagram, at David the Dog Trainer on Facebook and Instagram. Emily, Christa, final thoughts?
Not really, but thanks for having me. I'm good to go.
No problem.
You'll be
This
back.
has been great. Thank you.
Sorry, they'll be
Love
back
talking
for
about
part
Caesar.
2 of Caesar's Way.
Josh, final thoughts?
No,
Did you learn anything?
I feel like I am learning things through these little excerpts of Caesar's Way.
Do you feel like this, like, does this stuff, like, feel applicable to, like, your, like, are there things you're kind of, like, looking at and, like, correlating between, like, your dog and
Yeah,
you're
for
hearing
sure.
in this?
Definitely. I think anyone, like, since I'm not an actual trainer, I mean, I think this book would be something good for, like, a layman's,
Yeah.
person that has no idea about what dog training is, or, like, maybe even to go about it. I think it's a good introduction to maybe connecting yourself with your dog.
Maybe you'll end up being a dog trainer soon.
No. No.
media man?
Yeah, I'm just the media guy.
Very good. All right, we're going to wrap it up. Hour 45 minutes, and we're done.